Tradition 2. For our group purpose there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God, as he may express himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants, they do not govern. In NA we have a great concern in protecting ourselves from ourselves. Our second tradition is another example of this. By nature we seem to be strong-willed, self-centered people, seeking self-gratification in the realms of money, power, and sex. An important part of our recovery is learning how to live with these drives, how to realign our misguided instincts, how to stop acting out our insanities, how to disarm our self-destruct mechanisms, and how to rechannel our energies toward constructive ends. In other words, we have to replace our dying program with a living program. Early in our recovery we learned that we did a pretty poor job with our lives. One of our sayings is, our best ideas got us here. This seems apt, as we look back and see how many times our schemes and plans got us into trouble despite their original intent. We were powerless over our addictions and could not manage our own lives. Now we find ourselves thrust together in NA, mismanagers all, not one of us capable of making consistently good decisions. When we realized this had related to our new group-oriented way of life, we often experienced a sort of gut-level panicky feeling. At this point our old-timers usually come forward to reassure us. Don't worry. God takes care of fools and addicts. This is a spiritual program and he won't let us screw it up, they say. They go on to explain that in NA we rely on a loving God as he expresses himself in our group conscience rather than on personal opinion or ego. In working the steps we need to come to depend on a power greater than ourselves. We continue this relationship and utilize it for our group purposes. If we each turned our will and our lives over to his care and seek to do his will, he will express himself on a group level. When a decision needs to be made for a group, each of the members should take the time to meditate on what is most beneficial to our common welfare. If we do this, then the results will truly be an expression of the spiritual concept of our group. We know that this is a fact for our fellowship, but sometimes we are confused when it seems our decisions don't work out very well. We forget that we are not perfect, and that we are only experiencing spiritual progress. When personalities and self will creep into our efforts, then the results suffer. We must be constantly on guard that our decisions are truly an expression of God's will. There is often a vast difference between group conscience and group opinion, powerful personalities, or popularity. Some of our most painful growing pains have come as a result of decisions made in the name of group conscience. Our experience has shown that there had been nothing spiritual about some of our decisions. We took a group conscience and decided that, wait a minute. We don't take group conscience, we take votes. One group decided that members must be graduates of a specific treatment program, another felt that only heroin addicts should attend, another accepted only Christians. Another decided that residents of a halfway house could attend if they promised not to talk. Another let others sit in on their group only if they would contribute to the collection. Another decided to pay its officers wages. One group promised that anyone who attended their meetings would be able to get a job at a local counseling center, and so on and so on. We've made a lot of bad decisions and pawned them off as group conscience. This worries many of us. How can we really tell if our decisions are really group conscience or not, and how do we prevent painful mistakes? There is one truth which helps guide us. True spiritual principles are never in conflict, they always complement each other. The true spiritual conscience of a group will never contradict any of our other spiritual principles. Whenever we are faced with a group decision, we first try to eliminate personalities, prejudices, and self-centeredness. Then we review our decisions to make sure they are not in violation of any of our 12 traditions. If we take another look at our decision and try to resolve it. This approach isn't foolproof, but it has helped to prevent problems many times. The second tradition also concerns the nature of leadership in NA. We have seen that we try to wrest authority in the spiritual conscience of the group. In keeping with this, we make a special point of trying to prevent authoritarian leadership. We have learned that for our fellowship, leadership by example and by selfless service works, and that direction and manipulation fails. The way we designate our trusted servants ensures this. We choose not to have presidents, masters, chairmen or directors. Instead we have secretaries, treasurers, and representatives. These titles in themselves imply service rather than control. Our experience shows that if a group becomes an extension of the personality of a leader or a certain member, then it loses its effectiveness. Newcomers don't stay, and members stop coming. The group must then change or die. This is sometimes a difficult and agonizing process. Those who stay grow through the experience, but what happens to those who leave? An atmosphere of recovery in our groups is one of our most precious assets, and we must guard it carefully lest we lose it to politics and personalities. Those of us who have been involved in service for a long time or in getting a group started and keeping the doors open through the hard early days sometimes have a hard time letting go of the reins. Sometimes our egos get in the way, sometimes ungrounded fears get in the way, and sometimes the group gets in the way. Most of us come with a poor self-image and low self-worth. With time and some successes we begin to recover somewhat and develop healthier egos. We enjoy these feelings for they are healthy for us. We like recognition and attention and we often deserve them. However, this sometimes gets out of hand. We begin to pursue these things as ends in themselves and find ourselves in trouble. With more time and maturity we grow in humility and learn to deal with these new feelings in a more realistic and spiritual way. Another situation which often causes problems is fear. We sometimes fear that there is no one else who can serve the group as well as we. We are afraid that if we turn over the responsibility to new members, something terrible is going to happen. We may even have tried to get others involved before without success. It doesn't matter whenever we are unwilling to take a chance to let the group grow on its own, or when we become afraid of change, we are playing God. Our friends may tell us to let go and work the third step, but sometimes we are deaf to their love. In these cases it is ourselves who must go and grow. But again, what about those we lose in the process? Still another situation which causes leadership problems is when senior members are thrust into positions of power. Sometimes a group or part of a group will be afraid to let their leaders step down gracefully. The members time and time again draft the same leaders, demanding that they perform, demanding that they rule the roost. In these cases change is especially hard because it seems that only a crisis will do the job. Usually, the leader himself must refuse to serve. This goes against the grain because we've been told never to refuse an NA request, and this has been a valuable part of our program. To refuse to lead because it's not what's best for the group requires a lot of maturity and humility. Most of those involved with service sooner or later have to deal with these problems. At first they are unaware. They run on good feelings, the notoriety, and the attention. After a while, they may begin having mixed feelings. Part of them revels in the spotlight, while another part is very uncomfortable because they know they are just another member. This period is often followed by a period in which they deny their leadership and value to the group. Eventually and gratefully they find a degree of humility which allows them to accept themselves and their places in the fellowship. They accept that they are truly just a part of a greater whole, that they in themselves are not indispensable or dispensable. Along with this they also accept that they do have special and valuable experiences which can benefit the group. They become a resource for the group, seeking neither to control the group, not to set themselves apart. It is at this time that their long service truly contributes the most. They encourage us, inspire us, and teach us by example. Even though their services are less dramatic than when their group was struggling to survive, they provide a foundation of stability, strength, and experience upon which our fellowship can grow.